Have you ever noticed that when you study for many hours every day, you forget almost everything the very next day? It feels unfair, but the truth is simple. Your brain is programmed to delete information. It removes anything that seems unimportant or unused. But at the same time, in Japan, students memorize more than 2,000 characters and never forget them. How is this possible? How do they keep so much information in their minds without losing it? In this story, I will tell you about several science-based techniques that Japanese learners have used for centuries. These methods can completely change the way you study and remember things. And when you understand them, you will see that you don't need to learn the old way anymore. You don't need long nights, endless rereading, or stressful study sessions. You just need to understand how your brain works. Hi, young brains, and welcome. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss new videos that change your mind and your English. And it also helps to make more lessons for you. So, let's go. Most teachers never tell you that passive learning does not work. Passive learning means rereading notes again and again, hoping that something will stay in your head. Your brain sees this repeated reading as useless information because you are not doing anything active with it. That's why so many people sit for hours and still remember so little. Think about how many times you have stayed up late trying to memorize something, only to walk into the exam and forget almost everything. That painful moment when your mind suddenly becomes empty is not your fault. It happens because of a neurological process called the forgetting curve. This curve shows that your brain forgets almost everything you learn unless you actively fight against it. But here comes the good news. Japanese students learned how to fight this natural forgetting. They study several times more information, but they spend less time doing it. Their progress seems almost magical from the outside, but it comes from smart systems, not superpowers. One of the most important ideas they use is called active recall. Imagine this. Instead of putting information into your brain, you try to pull it out. Most people think forgetting is a failure, but in reality, every time you try to remember something, you strengthen your brain's connections. It's like training a muscle. When you try to lift something heavy, even if you cannot lift it perfectly, the muscle still grows. So how can you start using active recall? First, close your books. Take a simple white sheet of paper. Now, write down absolutely everything you know about the topic you are studying right now. Don't check your notebook. Don't open Google. Just write from memory. At some point, you will stop and think, wait, what was next? This moment of difficulty is the exact moment when your brain learns. The discomfort you feel is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of growth. Another Japanese method is called Kumon. It teaches that studying a little bit every day is far more effective than studying a lot once a week. When you feel that you are starting to forget something, it is your brain's way of saying, hey, repeat this, strengthen this memory. Japanese students don't wait until the night before the exam. They repeat information at specific intervals, after 24 hours, after 72 hours, after 1 week, after 1 month, and so on. Each repetition strengthens your memory like adding another brick to a wall. With every correct interval, the wall becomes stronger and harder to break. The next method may completely change how you think about learning. It is called Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. The idea is simple. Improve any process by just 1% every day. You don't need 1 hour. You don't need a whole evening. You need only 6 minutes. Here's how it works. 2 minutes of active recall, 2 minutes of spaced repetition, and 2 minutes of deliberate practice.
These micro improvements add up like a snowball rolling down a hill. After 1 month, you are not just a little better, you are around 30% better. There is also Shuchu Roku, another interesting technique from Japan. This method focuses on creating an environment where learning becomes natural and unavoidable. You basically turn your study time into a small ceremony. Light a candle, take only one pen, and remove all distractions. Create a space that feels special and peaceful. Your brain reacts strongly to rituals. When you approach learning with respect, your brain treats the information with more attention and seriousness. It becomes easier to focus, understand, and remember.
Think about a moment in your life when you learned something very quickly. Maybe it was a game you enjoyed or a sport you practiced. You didn't just sit and watch. You participated. You made mistakes, corrected them, and improved step by step. This is the core of the Japanese system of learning: constant practice and engagement. Science supports this idea. Our brains are not designed for passive studying. They are built for action, problem solving, and repeated practice. Everything you heard today is not just a collection of techniques. It is a complete system for mastering anything you want. But here's the truth. Most people will watch a video like this and then return to cramming the night before exams, hoping something will finally work. Only about 1% of people will actually apply these ideas. They will read the full guide, try the methods, and make their studying 80% more effective. Every day you wait is another day stuck in the old system. But if you start today, even with small steps, your future self will thank you. Now let's continue our journey into the world of Japanese learning methods and discover how you can completely change the way your brain remembers information. In the first part, you learned about active recall, spaced repetition, Kaizen, and learning rituals. But now it's time to go deeper. Because the real power of these techniques appears only when you combine them and use them every day, even in small ways. Let's start with a simple idea. Your brain loves patterns. When something happens again and again in the same order, your brain builds a mental shortcut. This shortcut makes learning faster and remembering easier. Japanese students understand this very well. That is why they often follow the same study routine every day. They wake up, they start with a short review, they practice actively, and they end with a small reflection. This routine is not about discipline, it is about teaching their brains to expect learning. Imagine you wake up and the first thing you do is repeat what you learned yesterday. It takes only 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes tell your brain, this information is important. Keep it. If you do this for just 1 week, you are already far ahead of someone who studies randomly whenever they feel motivated. Another important part of the Japanese learning system is the idea of reducing friction. Friction is anything that makes starting difficult. A messy desk, too many books, a noisy environment, notifications on your phone, or even a bad mood. Japanese learners work hard to remove these obstacles. They prepare their desk the night before. They choose 1 book instead of 5. They keep their study tools minimal. Everything is done so that when it is time to learn, they can start immediately without thinking. This simple idea can change everything. When studying becomes easy to begin, it becomes easy to continue. Now let's talk about something even more interesting: the role of struggle. Many people think that learning should feel smooth and comfortable. They believe that if something is difficult to remember, they are doing something wrong. But Japanese learners understand that struggle is a necessary part of the process. When something feels hard, it means your brain is building new connections. Think of a calligraphy student in Japan. They don't try to write the perfect character on the first attempt. They practice the same line again and again. Their hand becomes tired, their mind becomes tired. But this controlled struggle creates a deep understanding of the movements. Without this effort, nothing would stay in their memory. So the next time you cannot remember something, don't feel frustrated. Instead, think, "Good, my brain is learning." This small change in mindset can turn stress into motivation. Another key method used in Japan is storytelling. You may not expect this, but many teachers encourage students to create small stories or explanations using the information they want to remember. When you turn information into a story, your brain finds it easier to store and retrieve it. Stories connect facts with emotions, and emotions make memories stronger.
For example, if a Japanese student needs to remember a complicated concept, they might turn it into a simple narrative. Instead of memorizing dry definitions, they create a picture or a story in their mind. The brain loves stories because it evolved to remember experiences, not lists of facts. You can try this too. Take a topic you're learning and explain it to yourself as if you were telling a short, simple story to a friend. Make it fun, make it visual. You will be surprised how easily you remember it later. Let's continue with another powerful idea: reflection. After finishing their study session, Japanese learners often take 1 minute to reflect. They ask themselves 3 simple questions. What did I learn? What was difficult? What can I do next time? This reflection is short but incredibly effective. It helps the brain organize information, find weak parts, and prepare for the next learning session. Without reflection, your brain keeps the information in a messy, unstructured way. Modern neuroscience supports this. Reflection activates the parts of your brain responsible for long-term memory. When you think about what you learned, you repeat it again in your mind, which makes it stronger. Now let's explore something more cultural: respect for knowledge. In Japan, learning is seen as a process that deserves attention, commitment, and gratitude. Education is not viewed as a punishment or an obligation, it is a path of growth. This attitude has a deep impact on how students learn. When you respect the learning process, you focus more, complain less, and enjoy the progress. Think of the Shuchuroku technique. When you light a candle and create a quiet space, you are telling your brain, "This matters." In our modern world full of distractions, creating a sacred space for learning can transform your ability to concentrate.
Let's move to another important idea: mixing study methods. Japanese learners don't just read or write. They mix methods to keep the brain active. For example, they might read a text, then close the book and explain it aloud. After that, they might write a short summary. Then they might teach the idea to someone else. Each time they use a different method, the brain makes new connections. The more connections, the stronger the memory. This is why just rereading is so weak. It creates almost no new connections. But when you use your voice, your hands, your imagination, your writing, everything works together. Teaching is especially powerful. There is a saying in Japan, "To teach is to learn twice." When you explain something, you find gaps in your knowledge. You notice what you don't understand. And when you fix these gaps, your understanding becomes solid. Now, let's talk about something that many people ignore: rest. Japanese learners practice hard, but they also rest with intention. They understand that the brain needs pauses just as muscles do. Without breaks, your memory becomes weak and your motivation disappears. That is why methods like Kaizen include short sessions. You learn a little, then you step back. Then you learn again. This gentle approach reduces stress and builds consistency. Neuroscience agrees with this as well. When you rest, your brain continues to process information in the background. This is why you often find solutions in the shower, during a walk, or before sleep. Your brain uses this quiet time to connect the dots. One technique many Japanese students use is the micro break. After 50 minutes of studying, they take a 2-minute break. They stretch, drink water, or look out the window. These tiny pauses refresh the brain and help it stay focused for hours. Another fascinating idea is using the environment as a memory tool. Japanese students sometimes associate certain subjects with certain places. For example, math might be studied at the desk, languages in the living room, and reading outside. This environmental separation helps the brain create different memory rooms. When you enter the room again, the brain remembers what you learned there. You can try this by choosing different corners in your home for different tasks. Let's move on to energy management. Japanese learners pay attention to how they feel. They observe when their mind is clear, when they feel motivated, and when they feel tired. Instead of forcing themselves during low energy moments, they adjust their schedule. They learn during high energy moments, and they rest during low energy ones. This simple change makes studying more productive and less stressful. And now we reach the heart of the Japanese learning philosophy. Learning is a journey, not a race. You don't need to remember everything today. You don't need to master every detail immediately. What matters is progress, not perfection. Even 1% better every day becomes enormous over time.
The Japanese approach teaches us that learning is not about pressure. It's about curiosity, discipline, and small steps repeated consistently. When you follow this path, you start to enjoy the process. You study not because you must, but because you want to grow. Finally, here is the truth. Most people will listen to all of this and still continue studying the old way. They will keep rereading, cramming, and hoping for results. But just like in part 1, only about 1% will try these methods. Only a few will mix active recall with spaced repetition, create a study ritual, build daily habits, use storytelling, reflect, and respect the learning process. Only a few will change their environment and reduce friction. Those who do will study faster, remember more, and feel less stressed. They will discover that learning can be enjoyable and powerful. Every day you delay is another day using the old system. But if you start today, even with one technique, your future self will thank you, your brain will thank you, and you will finally feel in control of your learning. This is the message of the Japanese system. Small steps, big results. Start now, and you will be surprised how quickly everything changes. Thanks for listening, don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next video.